What's the difference between Tamar's rape and Ruth's Boaz? Tamar sowed in obedience, yet so did Ruth. Commands birthed and people-pleasing were Yah's hand, and a hope springs from a dry place, but why? They ask, why do you believe it will get better for you? Why do you hope on a wish that's made on a star? Who said you could believe? Your faith is in a barren place, a dry land where dreams go to sleep. Hannah was barren and chastised, mocked for being a wife with a closed womb. And yet she prayed to be a dreamer who can see how the end will be, to be a dreamer who speaks to the doubt surrounding, to be cast aside into slavery, to be despised. It wears on the soul. And in the desperation we scream, can you not see the injustice? Oh, Elohim. The difference between Tamar and Ruth is from whom the instructions came, and whose orders did we believe? What was the purpose behind the commands given? To please man or Elohim? The general calls the army. Not all generals are led by Yah. Some rulers will mock what they perceive as barren because they cannot see beneath the soil. Only his Ruach knows if coming back next year there will be fruit. He is the one who knows if there is any good man who lives in Sodom. He knows the generations of what comes from that which is planted in despair. As waves passing a ship bearing its heading with a tailwind, the false prophets who call our lives futures will no longer stand. Their words are fleeting, and so is their command. His great work will be finished in time. His great work will be remembered at the finish line. So stay the course, weary soldier. Don't let your tears dissuade you from your post. All is not lost. He has you, even when life won't let you coast. Shalom. This message is so important. It's about discerning who sent the person giving us instructions during a season. Who sent you? It can be so hard when we're in a waiting season and we need to have wisdom like Shalom in order to know how to wisely govern the wealth that we've received. If we're struggling and we need to know, Father, how are you going to provide in this season? It doesn't matter where we are. We're going to receive instructions from the Father as to how to move forward. Why? Because he's the lamp unto our feet and he guides us according to his path. So if we don't have the right instructions, or they're not coming from Yah, but they're coming from the point of fear or anxiety or worry or doubt, or from Hasatan, basically. When they're coming from the dark side, we need to be able to know and say, push that aside, that I'm not going to listen to that because that's not of Yah. Or yes, I am going to listen to this because I can discern his voice in this season.
So there are messengers who can come guised in light, and we'll think that they're coming to us, meaning no harm, meaning that they came to us in shalom. But really, in actuality, they are sent from the enemy, and their purpose is to distract us from producing the harvest that Yah desires for us to fulfill. This is biblical. In the book of YHWH talks about the wheat and the chaff, or the snares, the weeds that are placed in the same field. First, Yah plants the seeds, and then Hasatan, the enemy, comes and he plants the weeds. And they look the same while they're growing up, but as they grow, you begin to see, okay, now there's a difference between this plant and that plant. But it's at harvest season when these two are separated. They do not go to the same place. One is burned and the other is collected for the harvest. So in this season, Yah placed in my heart, be ready to be harvested. And do not allow false instructions, false leaders, false identities to take over your fruit in this season. Whenever I think about the military, I instantly think about orders. And the orders from a drill instructor while you're at chow is to chew your food and swallow it and taste it later. Basically, get that food down your throat as fast as you can. Stop thinking about it. Don't think, just act. Do what I'm telling you to do right now. Because there's going to come a time where I'm going to give you some orders and you might not like it. You might want to spit it up. But I'm going to condition your brain and get you accustomed to just doing as you're told without thinking. And that's what society does. Society places, Hasatan places people within society to give us orders and for us to swallow it down and accept it because it's coming from that person. It's coming from that rhythm. It's coming from that beat. And it gets drilled into our subconscious. It gets drilled into our psyche so that we seek after these things instead of listening for the voice of Yah. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Yahuwah gave us many examples of strong people within his word who were able to pause the outside noise in order to discern the instructions that were given in the season. Obedience led to the freedom of the people. Obedience led to shalom. Obedience led to the next level. When you couldn't obey the words that Yah was given, I believe there was punishment or a lack of fulfillment in those situations. Joshua dispels 2 spies out to scope out the land of Jericho. You have this person who's been chosen by Yah send out 2 spies to survey the land. Now, Yahusha had just received word from Yahweh that, okay, Moshe, my servant, is now gone. You now lead the people. He sends out the spies. The spies come about where in Jericho? They settle at a harlot's house. And see, I watched that interaction. It does not say that the spies were distracted. It does not say that the spies fell into lust at the harlot's house. They stayed focused. So they knew that they were there on assignment. And they talked to the harlot. And it looked like Rahab was going to, well, I guess she somehow, some way, the king found out of Jericho, found out that there were Hebrew men in her place, in her home. So he sent soldiers to go look for these 2 spies. She hid them, I believe, some facts at the top of her house. She covers for the spies. She's like, oh, they've left. She sends them away. She goes up to speak to the spies. Now, the interaction isn't wicked. It's not carnally minded. Even though Rahab is a harlot, their conversation is, look, thank you. Our vow to you, our covenant with you is that anybody who's in this house is protected. Place a red rope outside of your window so that we can see. But if you leave this domicile, we cannot guarantee that you are going to be safe. And it was then, they're like, but just don't tell anybody. So like, we get that the king found out that we were here in the first place, somehow, some way. But don't tell anybody that this is the arrangement, and definitely don't have anybody leave this house. And she agreed. And as a result, she became grafted into Israel. As a matter of fact, her seed, her lineage is of Yahusha. There's power in following orders and not being distracted. We receive orders, we look for his presence. We look for the bread of his presence. We look for his shalom. We look for the salvation there. What is the goal? If it is to protect our people, if it is to protect the fruit that he's placed inside of it, we go. We might be sent to some places that are unclean, like that harlot's house. But there was a mission even in the place of uncleanliness. And because of that, and this is a way to test the fruit of our placement in a place that's unclean, is there fruit being produced? When you're being sent out into the land on assignment, and the land distracts you so much to the point where you're seeing year after year after year after year, no fruit, no growth. In fact, you're starting to look like the land. You're in a harlot's house and it's starting to show that you're in a harlot's house. That's not it. That's a distraction. That's not Yah's will. But if he has you for a season in a place that is unclean, or in a place that, you know what, this does not seem like it's in alignment, this is not it. It's like, Father, is there fruit in this? Is there a reason to have a red rope here? Did you send me on a mission, on an assignment for somebody in this domicile? He's going to show you who and what and where and how and why. But it can be tempting in waiting for that answer because he doesn't give it to you all at once. He doesn't unpack it all at once. It can be tempting in the waiting for that instruction to just barge ahead or to just run away, honestly, because you don't want to get suffocated by that. But he is our daily bread. And I just found it interesting that she hides them under flax. She hides them under grain. This is like the symbolism of his presence. Ruth is a Moabite woman. She's not even of Yisrael. She marries into Yisrael because her husband's father led their family out of Yisrael during a famine and into Moab. Marries into Yisrael. Her husband dies, her brother-in-law dies, and the father dies. Naomi is her mother-in-law. Now, I'm sure during that time she came to know Naomi quite well. She knew there was something in her ruach that led her to say, no, I'm not going to stay in Moab and find a new husband here. I'm going to go and serve your Elohim. I don't even know him, but I'm going to go. There's something that said, you know what? I'm going to go with your people. Your people are going to be my people. Even though she didn't know the people. There was something about Naomi, and there was something about her presence that led her to a huge barley harvest where she's picking up grain and she's able to meet Boaz, and she's well provided for. There was abundance there. There was the bread of his presence there. And from there, she was able to give birth to Obed. Also in the lineage of Yahusha. Just because you're in a place is not going to determine whether or not you're out of Yah's will or not. He might place you in a place that is not necessarily ideal. Moab is not Yisrael. It's not. But sometimes famine drives us into places where we're not supposed to necessarily be. It's for a season, it's for a temperamental time. But from that, there comes salvation. So a Moabite woman goes from not knowing Yah, having disconnection, to being into the tribe of Yehuda by marriage to Boaz. Boaz gave orders to his people. He told his people to allow this Moabite woman, this foreigner, to glean his fields and to take extra in abundance. And this is in alignment with Torah. When we are among the stranger, we are not to forsake them and say, oh, they're not Yisrael, or they're not this or not that. Like, no, you're supposed to give even to those who are strangers, foreigners, those who don't know him. Because how will they know him unless we give bread, right? So this man who had an abundance, gave of his plenty to Ruth. And so Naomi gives instructions to Ruth, and she says, wash yourself, anoint yourself with oil, go to the threshing floor and uncover the feet of Boaz. Lay at his feet. He'll tell you what to do. What is that? Those are instructions, those are orders. And she says, all that you have said, I will do. Why does she follow those instructions? She follows them because I believe is the Ruach HaKodesh. I believe that was a form of favor upon her life, her obedience. I believe that she could see the fruitfulness of her being there. She knows that Boaz is a good man because of all the generosity that she's seen. She's finding shalom. It's not like she's finding abuse. It's not like she's getting these commands and these orders and she's seeing the fruits of abuse after having followed them. No, she's seeing, okay, there's favor in this. I'm walking in favor as I'm going and I'm following these instructions. Determining who sent this person is not only who sent you, but it's also what does following your instructions produce? What happens when I follow your instructions? Am I seeing fruits of his Ruach as a result of following your instructions? Or am I receiving more anxiety, confusion, doubt, worry, a distraction from my purpose, my gifts being stagnated? What is happening as a result of me following these instructions? Now, not all giving of bread is Kodesh. And I believe a lot of us skip over Tamar's account because Tamar is a very painful story. I'm not talking about the Tamar of Bereshit. I'm talking about the Tamar of Samuel, 2 Samuel. The lineage of David is predicted already by the prophet Nathan that there's going to be division and strife because of the decision that Dawood made to kill Uriah for Bathsheba, his wife. There were consequences with that that would be seen in the kingdom. So we have Amnon, who is the son of Dawood, and he has a thing for his sister, his half-sister Tamar. And Yonadab, his cousin, kind of like a friend, it's like, hey, so I see that your countenance looks ill today. Why do you look this way? And Amnon's like, because I'm crushing on my half-sister and there's no way that I can have her. And Yonadab gives him a very sinister plot. He says, proclaim to you like you're sick and tell King Dawood to have Tamar come to you and bring you food, cook food for you. And when she's cooking food, have your way. Amnon agrees to this plot. And when he agrees to this plot, King Dawood's like, sure, of course. So he sends his daughter Tamar to Amnon, to her half-brother's house. And she begins to cook these cakes for him. Amnon is watching. You have the scriptures describe her as a beautiful woman. She's cooking. She's a virgin. So she has many of the attributes that a king or a husband is looking for in a wife. But yet here she is finding herself cooking for her half-brother, expecting nothing. This is bread now. This is, she's giving of her gifts, her presence, her beauty, all the things that drove her half-brother to lust after her. These are actually positive attributes. And in a perverted sense, they are exactly what drew her to her demise. So Amnon says, come, feed me these cakes in my bed because I'm so sick I can't even get up. Like, come feed me. And she's like, what? So he sends out the court and then calls her to him. She comes. He grabs her by her hand and he begins to try to have his way with her. She says, no, nothing so vile should ever happen in Yisrael. Please, petition King Dawood. If he should so be inclined, he'll give you my hand in marriage. And he doesn't listen. And he rapes her. And not only does he rape her, he becomes disgusted with her after he rapes her and sends her out. And she says, no, even this is more wicked than you having raped me, is to send me out now, no longer a virgin. from your house expelled like this in disgrace. He sends her out anyway and calls a servant to take her out. When she leaves his home, she rips her beautiful dress that is only supposed to be adorned by those who are virgins, and she weeps bitterly. Now, I'm going to pause there. When you are following instructions that come from the enemy, his job is to distract you from utilizing the gifts that you have. He wants to distract you without covenant. He wants to distract you without promise. And it doesn't matter if you listen or not, if you acquiesce or not. That ruach is an evil ruach, and it's going to be disgusted with you anyway. There are some instructions that we get from people that no matter what we do, if we ignore them and we say talk to the hand, or if we obey them, these people are never going to be satisfied. I think so all of us can think of people who no matter what we do, it's never good enough. You could grovel at their feet and tell them how great they are all day and they say jump, you say how high, or you could say, you know what, no, I discern that you're wicked and I'm not gonna go. But no matter what, it's a problem. The thing about false orders is that you can definitely look at the fact that these people are usually narcissistic in a way. And they want what they want no matter what, and they do not care. And even if you get them what they want, they're still not satisfied. You know that ruach is not of Yah. I always wondered to myself, like, why did King Dawood, Malachim, why did he not pray about Tamar and sending Tamar over to cook? And I thought maybe it's because culturally that was an alignment then. It may not have been a big deal to have a sister cook for her brother to make him feel better. And see, I believe that a lot of us are led into destruction to follow false commands that are really sent by Yonadavs, okay? Because culturally speaking, we have these isms that tell us that it is right to do a said thing, but really they lead to perversion. Literally, they lead us to let our guard down around people that we really should have our guards up around. So if we're parents, if we are sisters and brothers, if we are loved ones, we cannot allow orders that come from, say, a Yonadav to dictate how we govern those who are submitted to us. You shouldn't say, oh, that person, you should listen to them because they are such and such. For real, go to the Father in all things. So later we see King Dawood faced with Absalom. Absalom is the brother of Tamar, and he is incensed. He decides to avenge his sister's rape. And what he does is later on, he asks King Dawood to prepare a huge feast celebration. And he said, especially bring Amnon. Especially bring him. I go, please, I want to invite Amnon to this celebration. King Dawood knew, I believe he could discern that there was going to be death as a result of it. So he asks why, but then yet still sends. Amnon is killed by Absalom. And then there's a whole war against Absalom. It can be so tempting to be lulled into its false sense of security and to acquiesce to the voices that say, do it. But remember, we must go to Yah with all things. And if he says don't, if he says stay, if he says wait, if he says any of those things, it is imperative. It can be sometimes between life and death, whether or not we obey. And I believe what happens is the Father grooms us, right? So in one season, we might miss the mark, right? For a righteous man falls 7 times, but rises again. But the wicked shall fall by calamity. So when we still have wicked roots at a level that he's grooming us in, we might miss at that mark, but we remember from that punishment. We remember later on, once we get to a place, we're like, okay, now I'm more spiritually mature. And now I realize that I have to go to the Father in all things. I'm humble enough to realize I don't have it all figured out. I can't see the bird's eye over the myopic like YHWH can see. I can only see from my narrow point of view, and my perspective can be jaded by culture. My perspective can be jaded by the desire to people please. My perspective can be jaded by a false sense of security. My perspective can be jaded by strife, deception, lies, rape, abandonment. My perspective can be jaded by financial standing. My perspective can be jaded by how I view other people or esteem them based off of their status. So it becomes imperative to go to Yah about all things, especially the things that He's given us command over. Of course, the ultimate example of bad instructions given from a loved one is Yov. Yov is being tested by YHWH. He's being tested by YHWH. And he loses everything. His children, his wealth, even his health. And his wife comes and says, just curse YHWH and die. Like, what kind of instructions are those? And yet he is married to her. It doesn't get any closer than a wife. But that's the thing. Hasatan uses the voices of the familiar to affect what we think about the instructions that are given. So, for example, when Yahushua was saying it is time for me to be crucified, it's time for my death, it's time for me to go ahead and do everything that has been prophesied for thousands of years, Kepha, Peter says, no, let it not be so. And Yahushua's like, Satan, like, you gotta go. You know, I rebuke you, Hasatan. Is Kepha the devil? Or was he not a vessel for the voice of worry, doubt, etc.? These are human feelings, but these human feelings can come from the familiar, can come from a wife, can come from those who are closest to us that say, just don't do it. It's too hard. The mantle that you're walking in, the authority that you're walking in, the calling that's on your life, it's too hard for me even to bear. I'm not even the one who's going to be on the cross with you. But it's too hard for me to know you in this intimate setting and scratching your boils as Yov was and not tell you to curse YHWH and die. See, to curse YHWH and die is not to say beep, beep, you know, like I think that's a way of it, but it's a sliding scale of it. That's on maybe the shallow end of the pool. The deep end of the pool of cursing Yah and dying is like your seed. It is your seed. It is the fruit of you spilling out onto the floor in disobedience. So if you look at the Tamar in Bereshit, she was widowed twice because both men spilled their seed onto the floor instead of creating life. And Yah took both of their lives. Like, when we look at an opportunity that Yah has placed us in, and let's say that the soil around us as seed were planted, and the soil around us were soldiers planted in war, like, it's hard. This is hard terrain. There's bombs going off. So the soil is full of manure. You know, this is hard stuff that we're all dealing with every single day. The pressures of society. In that moment, we have the opportunity to just say, I release, I dropped the ball, this is too hard, help, you know what I mean? And then to forsake the post that He's planted us in. And see, the thing about being posted someplace with an assignment is if we're there on Yah's orders and we abandon our post, that is like cursing Yah and dying, because it's like treason. We have committed treason. We have said, my way of seeing this situation is better than yours, rather than praying the prayer of Gethsemane that says, not my will, but your will be done. I would pray for this cup to pass me by, but if it's not your will, don't take it from me. I'm gonna drink it. And that's what happened. Yahusha drank it so that all of us could be cleansed. So there's water that cleanses, and then there's water that curses. I believe that's in Bemnebar 5 and 18. The water that cleanses is of Yahuwah. It is of our baptism. It is of the refreshing of us. It's the renewing of our spirit. It is the new part that's placed inside of it. It is the writing of the Torah on our heart. But the water that curses is when we have done something to defile the one we're married to, which is Elohim, and we lie about it. We hide it. We conceal it. The priest gives us that water and we drink it. And then the cursed water will cause our thigh to be lax and then our stomachs to protrude. There is water that curses, and the water that curses comes from a place that is unclean. That unclean place will seek to guide us and to nourish us the way that we believe that the Father will. But it's poisonous. That's what bad instructions do. They poison our futures. But what about if you receive instructions from a man or a woman of Elohim? Mordecai was definitely a man of Yah. And he comes to Esther and he says in Esther 4 and 14, if you altogether hold your peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Yahudim from another place, but you and your father's house shall be destroyed. And who knows whether you are come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Then Esther had them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather together all the Yahudim that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had told him. She didn't just say, okay, you're speaking and saying that Yahweh will deliver people from another way. Okay, I'm going to just go do it. She fasted and prayed. She already had favor. The king already loved her. We already read that Yahweh gave in Esther, really her name is Hadassah. Yahweh had given Hadassah favor. And he already gave it to her. She was chosen out of all the other women to be the queen in Vashti's place. So it's like she had already received favor. She could have said, you know what, Mordecai sent me, so I'm just going to go in there. No, she said, fast and pray 3 days, 3 nights. She fasted and prayed 3 days and 3 nights. And there's something about when you receive instructions that you fast, it gives you a hold on your tongue. You're not so quick to speak. And that's the thing that's needed. That chokmah is needed because I believe the Ruach HaKodesh placed this in her heart. Because when she went to go sit before the king, and she appeared before the king and bowed, and he extended her scepter to her, she invites them to dinner. 2 nights. They dine. It's like, what a way to break fast. And on the second night, she delivers the word that Haman is doing this terrible plot to kill the Yahudim. He gives us masterful instructions when we fast and when we deny ourselves and we deny our flesh. But it's important that even if the word comes from a person that we perceive as a man or a woman of Elohim, to fast and pray about it, to give us the answers. And it can be so hard to fast and pray, specifically fast, when you're surrounded by a lot of distracting personalities. It can be so hard to fast because you don't want to lash out against anybody because you're hangry. You don't want to lash out in your flesh. But if there is a way to be more disciplined so that your schedule can bypass those people, it's worth it. It's worth it because it gives you the clarity of knowing what to do in that season. Again, obedience led to the redemption of the Yahudim. Again, fruit that when instructions come and it's from Yah, salvation happens. All right, so I get it. You're like, these are all great examples of what to do. What if you get some instructions, you don't follow them, and those instructions get you grinding grain in prison with your eyes gouged out? What if your instructions, you don't hear them or you don't decide to follow them? What then? And what the Ruach HaKodesh placed on my heart is, when you get instructions and you find yourself living the consequences of being disobedient, never pray from your bondage. Never pray from the vantage point of your bondage, because what happens is we forget that we serve an infinite Elohim even though we feel constricted physically. So Samson, what he did was, after Delilah deceived him, he had his eyes gouged out, they cut his hair, he's in prison, he's grinding grain, and then he's led to the temple of Dagon, and he's in between, he's asking the servant to place his hands between the beams, but before he does that, he prays to Yah, restore my strength one last time so that I can kill these Plishtim, right? One last time. I thought to myself, if he's restoring his strength, first, Yah gave him spiritual sight, because now he knows for sure who his enemy is. How many times did Delilah deceive him? How many times did Delilah deceive him? And he gave the answer to his strength, and he could see that the Plishtim are opponents, like he could see that he was being set up. I think over 3 times that he could see that he was being set up by Delilah. And yet he was still faithful to her. But see, now he sees that the wickedness of these people. Now he remembers the reason why he had a Nazaraic vow. Now he remembers. So his strength is returning to him. His spiritual sight is returning to him. My prayer in that moment would have been, Father, you're restoring my strength. You're restoring my spiritual sight. Now, Father, restore my eyes, that I may wage war against the Plishtim, and that I may stand once again as a judge. Let the restoration of my eyesight be a sign to Yashrael that you can indeed restore sight to the blind, as Yahusha ends up doing by prophecy. It doesn't have to end in darkness. It doesn't have to end with the fact that we have maybe missed the mark, chata. Maybe we have missed the mark, but it doesn't have to end there. You're in the temple of Dagon for a reason. You missed the instructions, but now, even in the scriptures, it says that Yah used his affinity towards foreign women to wage war against the Plishtim, the Philistines. So he knew it. Sometimes our desires that are carnal are there for a reason, and they lead us to be planted in places where his strength can totally and completely annihilate the enemy in places and send redemption for his people. Now, I'm not saying to go out there and to just sin and to do against what the word says. No, I think it's way better to follow his instructions. If he tells you to stay away from a certain type of people who are not following Yah's word, you do that. If he tells you don't drink because it leads to destruction, if he tells you don't smoke, if he tells you these things, do them. The body is a temple for a reason. But if you find that you have missed the mark, his grace is sufficient. Make sure that you pray for chokmah, for wisdom, so that in discernment, so that as your strength returns and your sight is there, you know which way to go. Say, Father, give me hearing so I can know your voice in this season and I don't get led astray anymore. Don't let this opportunity be wasted. Fulfill in me the reason why I was born. And he will do it. Because death from disobedience, he took out more Philistines in that moment than he had ever lived all throughout his life. That's incredible. Yes, he destroyed the temple of Dagon, but maybe there's more missions for us. Now, if it's our time, it's our time. And I'm not saying that Samson should have prayed that prayer, but I took from that there's regenerative power, there's forgiveness, there's restoration of strength, even if we miss the mark. He calls us to watch the smoke and the tabernacle. He calls us to look for his leading. If he stays in a place, then we stay in a place. If he moves, then we move. That's where it says, when people say don't jump ahead of God, what they're referencing is in Torah, I believe it is in Bidmidbar, how the people of YHWH would follow after the ark, the tabernacle. And if the smoke stayed, they ain't leaving. Sometimes it can be hard to see if he's leaving or not, or staying. But just pray that the distractions be minimized. Tell him to increase your spiritual eyesight. Let you see. And you'll see the host of Malachim. You'll see the evidence of the bread of his presence. You'll see the regenerative power. You'll see the salvation in souls who would have never been met. You'll see the fruit of his love. You'll see the fruit of his love. And when you see the fruit of his love, you'll know why it's so important to hearken to his voice and to test the spirit. And you'll know how to do it, because you'll say, I remember when I was here once before and it was on a lower level, but now I'm here and I'm not going to break from my post. I'm not going to commit treason. I'm not going to waste my seed. I'm going to stand as a soldier and I'm going to find my target. And I'm not going to let culture tell me to swallow down this stuff and think about it later off the clock. No, I'm going to really meditate on his word. I'm going to fast and pray. I'm going to let there be a buffer there. And if somebody has a problem with you having a buffer there, then you know that they're from Hasatan. Straight up. You know that their orders are from Hasatan. If they try to rush you to do something without considering how you're impacting somebody else, that's wrong, that's foul, that's out of order. Because our number one commandment is to love one another as we love ourselves. So it's like, if I'm not giving that other person the same consideration, then how? Then how? And I can hear somebody saying, how could Yah love somebody and yet give the order to have them killed? I believe death in a fallen world was him saying, I cut off foes I know will never turn to me and will affect my crop. I do cut off the weeds when it's harvest time. I do not let the weeds kill that which I have sown. There must be justice. I must love my people. I cannot allow the wickedness of this world to take the sons of Elohim and to deprive them of the love that they should have and the redemption that I promised in my word. He can't do that. If the Plishtim are afflicting his people and killing his people and doing all of these things and pushing against his people, there has to be repercussion for that. Otherwise, he's not a just Elohim. See, an unjust nation or ruler of a nation will recognize that his people are being oppressed and do nothing about it. But a just king will recognize that his people are perishing and he will send deliverance. That deliverance is going to come at the cost of those who are pushing for annihilation of his people. That's love and war. That is truth and command. That is power. Power is not catering to feelings or carnality. True power is found in Yahweh when we submit to his instructions and to realize that there are consequences to our actions and to know that we are empowered to choose every day whom we will serve. Shalom. I pray that this message was a beracha to someone. If you'd like to support the channel, there's 2 ways to do it. There's one, to sign the petition to free Pastor Wang Yi. He's currently imprisoned in China. Unfortunately, China is replacing parts of the scriptures with political rhetoric in order to control the people. And there are pastors who stick their necks out and they preach the truth, even though it could cost them being tortured, imprisoned, or it could lead them to being killed. So please, if you haven't already signed the petition, I'm asking that you support that way. If you'd like to sow a seed, feel free to buy a copy of How to Be a Believer in a New Age World. I love you all. Shalom. Peace.